bit of prayer, and then Tracy can lead us through that, through the whole morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are.
Yes, that's right. Wherever you happen to be. Okay, Nita,
Right.
and I am recording this so that we'll have it for later.
Father, we thank you for our time together. We thank you that we're meeting brothers and sisters scattered around the world, seeking to learn from each other so that we may bless the world. Help us to be diligent students as we embark on the hard task of leading ourselves. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, well, we're so grateful that you could all join us, and we are excited about this topic because managing your time is probably one of the most, if not the most crucial element of doing a graduate program. And I would say especially when it comes time to write a dissertation, and you're not, of course, and accountable for every writing or reading something daily. So I think that it's one of the most important factors in being successful in a program. We do at the end want to open it up for questions, but I'm just going to throw a few things out there. Anita has some more specific things, but one of the things that I found so important when I was in my doctoral program is I had to carve out time, and it had to be specific. And it had to be regular. It couldn't just be happenstance, or if I had something due, it wasn't like my undergraduate where I could just, slam myself one whole night and get it done. I specifically had to carve out time daily. And we all have busy schedules and families. And I found, and what I had one of my professors tell me is, you're going to have to cut out something to be able to do this. You can think, well, I don't have anything to cut out. But you've got 24 hours in a day. You've got to take time for this. There's no other way around it. It's for a season, and that's what you have to recognize. For this season, I can't do whatever it is, X, Y, and Z. I had one professor tell me one time that he said, one of the things I cut out was sleep. He said, I specifically, when I had little kids, I was doing my writing of my dissertation, and I stayed up till midnight every night and wrote, and then went to bed, and it cut out. He said, it cut out about 2 hours of my sleep, but that's what I gave up. And I remembered that. So I remember when my husband was traveling, I would stay up till 11 or 12 at night writing, and then get up at 6 the next morning or 6:30 and go. Then when I started working at BGU and I worked from home a lot, I would still get up at 5:30 and do a quiet time and then write for 2 hours before I started working at 8 o'clock. So it could be something like that, or there could be a sit down with your family to say, I'm in this season, and I'm not going to be able to do whatever it may be. And you're going to have to still carve out family time. I think that's important, but it may not be as much as what you're normally used to. So there are those things that you're going to have to say, this is what I'm going to do in this season. And also, please remember, it's for a season. It's for a season. It's for 3 years, maybe 4 years. But then you will be able to move on and you have reached that goal. So that's my encouragement, is just know, and you've got to just make that decision. I know I'm going to have to make the time for this, to cut out and carve out time and maybe give up something. It may be a hobby you enjoy doing. I don't know, but to be able to say, for this season, I'm not going to do this so I can get this accomplished. And I hope that makes sense. And you hear my heart in that. Dr. Nita, what would you add to that?
I would say that one of the places you can cut is a little bit in your social life. Especially those of you who may be hugely extroverted, probably have a wider circle of friendships. And some of those friendships would probably fall in the acquaintance area. So I would encourage you to evaluate your relationships and decide which ones you have time to invest in and which ones will have to stay on the back burner a little bit more than they have already. The other area is I couldn't cut down on sleep. I don't function if I don't have enough sleep, but I cut down on hobbies. And so I just basically said, this is something I'm not going to do for the next 4 years, because I have something that's much more exciting, much more goal-oriented for my personal walk. And so literally I just moved those hours into my study hours. Now, some courses are very demanding and some of them aren't. Some of them that aren't are quite manageable. You can do it in 8 to 10 hours a week, not a problem. You can get your reading done, especially if it's a 4-credit course. You may even have read some of these books earlier, so that's, or for another course. So it may not be the same intensity. I have found through my experience talking to students that the course that they struggle most with is either the Overture or 8-credit courses. Now, 8-credit courses require us to read 3,600 pages if you're a doctoral student, which in itself is huge because you actually have to understand 3,600 pages. So it's not the I've skimmed through, it's I've engaged with 3,600 pages. So the best way to do an Overture, an 8-credit class, is to determine which nights in the week you're going to spend on the class. So let's say you say, I'm going to work on it 4 nights a week or four times a week, whatever your time in the day may be. So then you decide that, according to school requirements for that class, that you should read your books as early on in the session as possible. So let's say you've just finished a class, you're starting with another class. I mean, it says quite clearly we're supposed to have read the books before, but you know, in reality, that's not going to happen if you're coming from one course to another. So let's say you say to yourself, I'm going to have all my books read and my book reports done by the halfway mark. The reason I'm saying the halfway mark is because then you're going to have group projects. The intensity of the interaction with other students actually rises, and the quality of the work in your comments back to students is expected to rise. So you might be starting off with a course and professors like, you know, first, second, third week is pretty lenient in terms of, you know, whether you're footnoting your comments back or you're referring to another book. But after that point, there is no more time for you to say, well, I'll read later. And how are you supposed to fix those reflection comments back to other students? You literally can't. So make sure your reading is done by the first half and your book report. So read a book, do your report. The reports become like a muscle. The more you use it, the quicker you can write them. And if you are highlighting or journaling along the way, or if you're using a Kindle, you can print out your highlights and write your book report from your printed highlights. So you can do that in one evening. So here is an example of what it would look like in week 2 of a class. You're going to read 2 nights a week because let's say you've given yourself 20 days to read. So 3,600 pages divided by 20 is how many pages you have to read per time that you're reading. You have to put in your 8 book reports. That's another night. You're in a class one night and you have homework to hand in another night and then respond to fellow students another night. So you can see how now, if you're not really rigid about your personal investment in this course, how things can slowly fall apart. After the midway mark, you're going to start thinking about what you want to do for your final project. And that's going to take time. You're going to have to do research. You're going to have to think about how this is going to unfold. You're going to have to talk to people. And if you're setting up some sort of, let's say, a workshop, or you're going to have to actually run that workshop. So this is where your time really gets eaten up, and therefore your reading should be done in the first half of the course. So literally an 8-credit course, like an overture, can be done if you're very strict with yourself and constantly remember, I came into this program because God called me to this program. Therefore, I will be diligent in the work that I produce and in my regular effort towards this course. Now, some courses are a little bit easier. There may be 8 credits, but they're a little bit easier in terms of how you engage with them because it might be more familiar to you. So in that case, you can put the challenge out to yourself and go, I'm going to do a fabulous job on my final project because I only have this number of years to engage with this community to learn the most that I can. So I hope that that's helpful to you in how to negotiate a 8-credit course. Does anybody have any comments?
Sorry, I forgot to turn my phone down.
That's okay. We do want to open it up for questions. I do want to say something real quick. If you are in the doctoral program and you're writing a dissertation, I know life can happen in the middle of that and it takes a bit, but I would say you need to write, at least sit down with your paper, reading it and putting some notes or writing or doing something towards it 5 nights a week or 5 days a week. 5 times in a week you're sitting down with that. If you start letting days go by, then you lose where you are, your thought process, and so it can just really set you back, and then it gets easier and easier to put it on the back burner. And I did that for a short season, and realized I cannot do this. I have to just engage daily. And I know, you have days you may just need 1 day of a break or something happens, but if you just tell myself, I'm going to do this 5 days a week, at some point, even if it's just 30 minutes, sit down with it and write or make notes or something with it. So I would put that in there also. Again, that's carving out time. So I do want to open it up for questions.
Well, I was, Vita has this Facebook group on Facebook, and she mentioned that we were going to have this time together, and Noelle had some thoughts, right? So would you mind sharing them? Because they're very practical.
Yes, good afternoon or evening or good night to everyone. And I am Noelle, and I'm from Guyana. And I think that all of the sentiments expressed earlier between Dr. Nita and Ms. Tucker are relevant for the studies that you are going to engage in. It is very easy for us to lapse into a program that is not the program. And I think that was expressed quite well. You will say, I'll put off this thing for tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes, something else come up, and it's put off again, and then something come up and it's put off. So 4 days in the week, you haven't done anything. It may seem that to you, because of the studies that you may have done before, the bachelor level, maybe at the master level, or if you're doing the master level now, maybe at the bachelor level, and if you're doing your detailed program now, maybe at the master level. Things are different in every program that you engage in. The higher you go, there are differences, the methodology, the type of reinforcements are different. And therefore, the faster you realize that, it would be better for you to put things together. The question that most people ask, how can I put away something that is important? Take for me, for example, I have 2 congregations that I must prepare for every Sunday, must prepare for every Wednesday, because that's Bible study on Wednesdays, and then church service, church meeting, and all of that. In addition to that, I am also engaged in a job outside of church. So there are a multiplicity of things that you have to do. Deal with students, deal with congregation. How do you do it? you need to timetable it, as Dr. Nita said. You need to timetable whatever you're doing, and you got to be specific. You have to let go something. And sometimes you feel bad. You say, well, if I let go this one, how would that person feel? Sometimes you have to do what we call tough love. You love it, but you have to let it go, because it will interfere with your work, and it would interfere with your end result. It would interfere with your success. There are things that may come in, like illness, that you don't cater for. How do you deal with it? How can you catch up back? And all of these things have to be considered, and that is why once you have the chance, you have to do the pre-reading, you have to do the pre-preparation. So in case any unfortunate things step in, unpredictable things step in, then you would have covered enough material, and you don't have to put off for another year and extend it to another year, but you can complete within time. What I did, and I'm saying illness because I know I got ill, and I got somebody went into my car and stole all of my notes. And it was a good thing that I had bits and pieces somewhere. I had good friends that I had built relationship with from the class who was able to help me back so that I could put things back together. That was enough to frustrate you. Illness plus your notes gone. But because God is my answer, and because I felt that he's the one that would have led me to this higher level and to this particular school, Bakke Graduate University, I always put everything to him first. And even when I speak with Vida, I said to Vida, let me tell you something. I gave this program to God. It doesn't matter how rough it is. I am going to be successful, and I'm going to be successful within the time frame that he sets out for me to be successful. And trust me, it doesn't matter how rough the sea is. There is always a freedom so that I can work, because I gave everything to him. I offer everything to him. Before I study, before I read any book, before I go to any class, I would put him in front and says, you sort out my thoughts, you help me to think, you help me to do whatever. And sometimes I'm so surprised with what he would have allowed me to do. So we cannot divorce Christ from what we are doing. And I don't want anyone to feel because I'm a pastor, that's why I have Christ and so forth. If you're a believer, Christ should be with you all the time. You don't have to be a pastor and then to have Christ. And so I am using that benchmark, Christ, the answer to all of our woes. And if we have him in our lives, then we gonna be respectful in whatever we do. We are gonna be definite in whatever we do. We are gonna make sure that we have order in whatever we do, because he is someone who has order. There's always order in the house of the Lord. And so once we put order in whatever we do, then we'll be able to get through it. Some challenges, but you will be able to get through it. It doesn't matter how hard the course may be. It doesn't matter how difficult whatever it is before you. Once you put him first, you will get through. So this is my advice to you. You need to be dedicated to whatever you do. That's the first thing. So prayer, connecting with God, dedication, commitment, and then the rest will fit into place. Thank you.
Noel, that's awesome. The encouragement,
Okay.
awesome. Even
Yes.
for those who are
Yeah.
finished in our studies, just to have you inspire us and encourage us to be steadfast. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for your dedication to it, that you didn't let anything stop you.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think in addition to what Noe just said, we need to have a backup to everything we are doing. A couple of weeks ago, my laptop, everything just crashed. So I was devastated because all my works were on the system. But I was able to recover them because I have a backup. So running this program, one needs a backup. I started my PhD program before, but I have to discontinue with it because I had some terrible setback. So, and this time around that I started, I started having what I can call an attack, in Africa, sometimes you have demonic attack, things that are working against what you are doing that want to really distract you. So that's where the place of prayer is very important. We have to take all those things to the Lord in prayer. And, it was when I started this program, I lost my mom. And that one is a distraction on its own, but I thank God because I was not distracted. I've prayed against all those distractions and God is helping me out. And another thing that is helping me in this program is a principle that I've learned over the year, that when you are doing an important thing, you have to cultivate the habit of do it now. When you postpone a thing, then you don't know what will happen tomorrow. So whenever I start maybe writing my journal, like this week now, I told my lecturer that I won't be around for the lecture. I was unable to attend the Monday lecture because I traveled from Nigeria to US. So, but immediately I came, I have to set time apart, deny myself of sleep while other people are sleeping. I'm awake working on my journal because I cannot wait until maybe Friday or Saturday, and we have to submit the journal on Friday. So every time, every little break that we have, my leisure time, I have to sacrifice it. Mm-hmm. So it will take sacrificing your leisure time, making use of odd hour to really concentrate on this program. And another thing is, Noel talks about church. The one handling the discipleship of my church. And I'm always been engaged. So I told my pastor that for this time, they should please permit me. So most of the weekly meeting, I'm not there, but I always function every Sunday. So these are part of the thing to be able to, meet up with the demand. This program is highly demanding. I've never been used to writing journal, especially weekly journal. So I have to dedicate time to write my weekly journal. You have to participate in online discussion. You have to read your books, When I told my elder brother is a lecturer in one of the universities in Nigeria. I told him, I said, the PhD we are doing in Nigeria, that in my rating, that I scored Nigeria University low, that it is now that I know that I'm doing PhD because it's highly demanding. And another thing is we have to prioritize our priority. We have a lot of things doing, but we have to give attention to this program so that one will be able to finish on time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think Dr. Martine had something she was thinking about.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, whatever. I was just thinking to share a little bit about reading of fast reading. I usually, in the francophone part of the DTL, when we have our first overture, I'm teaching students, participants to learn how to read fast, because you don't have to read every single word in every single book. And you need to learn what is important and to select what is important for you to read, and some parts of books that are not necessarily important to read. First of all, it's important to look at the title, to find out who the author is, read the fourth page of the back page of the book to get a summary, look at the table of contents, look at the index, and look at the bibliography. It's a no-brainer. But then what you will need to find out is what the book is about, or what the argument of the writer is. And if it's an academic book, usually it's in the introduction or the first chapter. And the first chapter outlines usually what the rest of the book is going to be about. So you do read the first chapter thoroughly to understand how the book is organized, what the author wants to demonstrate, etc. You will also want to read the last chapter, because that chapter you want to read it word for word, because that's going to be the conclusion of the author's argumentation and demonstration. But in the chapters in between, you may want to do either one of the two things. You can either take each chapter, read the intro, and read the conclusion of each chapter, because they will show to you what the chapter is about. And then when you find the chapter that has the crucial arguments that you don't want to miss, that chapter, you will read it really word by word. But for instance, when you read a dissertation, and you have to read some dissertations because they demonstrate to you what the latest research is as of today, or in the recent times, or in your area. You don't need to read the research methods class chapter. You just skim through it to look at what kind of methodology the author, the researcher used. But that's not the most important part. The most important part is the findings and the discussion of the findings and the recommendations afterwards. So we grew up, I don't know if you were, but I grew up with the idea that I had to read every single word of every single book I have to read when I'm studying. And I learned, thankfully, through some friends, that actually we don't need to read every single word of every single book that we have to read for a class. But you will need to use your good judgment to understand what the writer wants to demonstrate, and to have evidence of this understanding and of this demonstration. Does this make sense a little bit?
Yes, and I'm going to share my screen, because actually I have a book that Lynn Bell suggested, and I can demonstrate a little bit. I haven't bought this book. I was looking at it, but it's Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity. And Lynn suggested it on this topic of time management. And Dr. Martine, I appreciate so much of what you were saying. And if you look at this, I can go right here. I can just keep going. And I can go up, to read the chapters and see, okay, what are the chapters that I want to focus on? Like Dr. Martine said, a new practice for reality, chapter 1. Also, you might want to read the introduction, Getting Things Done. It's going to tell you an overview. And then chapter 1. Let me just go back to this real quick. Getting Things Done, just the overview, the introduction. Sometimes you think, okay, I can skip that. But I always find that gives me a good overview or a thought process for the author. So I usually read through that, at least skim through it. And then you can say, okay, what chapters in here are going to best help me? And you can go to those chapters. Like she said, read chapter 1. That gives you an overview. And then you can skip on down and look at other ones. What capturing or corralling your stuff. Okay, I need help in that area. So I'm going to read that chapter. And then, keeping on going. Next action. Okay, I need help with that. So I'm going to focus in on that. And then go to your conclusion. It's exactly what Dr. Martine was saying, is you can just look at this and figure out, okay, what is the author saying? What's the main focus here? And what do I need from this book? But just beyond that, this is a book that was recommended, Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress Free. Let me get back to the title here, because I'm trying
Increase productivity.
yeah, I'm trying to get it back up and it won't just go up. But anyway, but this is a book that was recommended by Lynn Bell. She's the director of our MBA program. And so I did want to get to it and recommend it to you. It's by David Allen, Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity. So if y'all want to write that down, another book to read, but this one might benefit you really in your overall program. So wanted to do that, show you that. Go ahead, Mark.
Can we have this book?
So first of all, I want to say thank you to each of you. And I want to thank Dr. Nita for talking about the expectations, the different kinds of expectations of courses. I'm going to go back and watch this video at least 2 times because I took feverish notes, but I'm sure I didn't get everything I want to write down. I also want to thank Dr. Martine for talking about how to read, because I am one of those people, and I would bet that the Holy Spirit spoke to you, Dr. Martine, if I was a betting man. I feel like I have to be comprehensive to be responsible.
If I may jump in here, the desire is often that, I want to acquire as much knowledge as I possibly can, and so read a book from cover to cover. But in hindsight, I wonder how much I actually absorbed of the whole book.
Oh, that's the real deal.
Right? And so if I say, this course focuses on this aspect, well, then that's the aspect I need to focus on in this book. Now, some of these books are available through our library, or they might be in our files, or they may just be portions of the book available for free for students in the library or in the files. And that is the part that you really need to focus on. Some of the stuff is really good to know, but is actually not necessarily formative in how you're going to approach the whole course or remember it for your final project as a student. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of really important to remember, that you have a final project. And so your journaling, even though it's an academic journal, is really crucial. It's not just for the course. It's a journal that you're going to go back to when you're actually writing up your final project. It's also a chronicle of your journey. So it's something that you may want to keep as a memoir. And it's also a spiritual journey, because in there, God is revealing stuff to us academically, for sure, but he's still revealing things to us. So it's important to remember that as well, that you can have a spiritual response to an academic piece of information and include that in your journal.
Yeah, I love what you said. I want to just say that there are 2 other books that I would love to just put before you for you to look at and consider for the future. One is a book that's helped me a great deal, and it comes back to the whole idea of what can I let go of, and that Tracy was talking about and that Noel was talking about. And one of the things that I've discovered, and I'm saying this just to introduce these 2 books to you, is it was just a couple of years ago when, in preparation for God leading me into the program at his exact timing for me, that I was told that I needed to let go of all the things that I was good at, but concentrate on the things that I was best at. And so you know, just like we evaluate relationships that we need to nurture, or you know, ways that we prioritize our time. One book is called Essentialism, and I highly recommend that if you, I don't care where you are in your life.
Yes,
if you're- Dr.
definitely.
Martinez, oh my goodness, I just can't even tell you how powerful that book is. And one of the chapters, interestingly enough, is on editing. Dr. Martin will remember. Tracy, do you know the book? Do you know this book?
No, I don't. I was going to ask you though.
I'll get you the PDF in a minute.
Okay, and I was just going to say,
Also-
you might want to type it or the name in the chat box too, Mark.
It is right here. It's called Essentialism, the Disciplined Pursuit of Less. Essentialism, the Disciplined Pursuit of Less.
Would you hold that up again, please?
Mm-hmm. And it's written by Greg McKeown.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And basically,
I'm
in the
sorry,
editing,
Mark. Hold it up one more time, and let me get the last name in the chat box. Okay.
And so there's one chapter on editing, and some of you, which would be very few of you, a couple of you know that I'm an editor, as well as an author and writer and a writing coach. And it's really powerful, the chapter on editing, because what he says is you must cut away everything that is unnecessary so that the most important things can come forward. And what I've been learning is that's what God is trying to do with me. I wrote down, I wrote down for myself, I'm learning how to have a pruned life. I just got done reading John 15 a couple minutes ago before we started. And I'm learning how to have a pruned life. And the other book title is Atomic Habits. And I don't have the author available to me right now, or the book. I've ordered the book, but one of my my close partners in ministry and business just finished the book, and he's been talking to me about it. I just bought it, but I know enough about it to know that the book really teaches us how to build, maintain, and improve our habits. So let me just say real quickly some things that recently have happened to me as a result of my starting my independent study. In January, my laptop crashed when I just started my course, and I lost finances, stuff, and everything. In February, I had some significant financial delays that messed up my finances on a level. And thirdly, in March, I was sick most of the month with the flu. And that was my time when I'm in my course. So I'm just recovering from all of this stuff. And so a couple things come to my mind right now, and it's all about what you've been talking about in a way, which is setting myself up for success. And I love everything. Like I know I'm in the right place right now because of all the things that each of you have said. But time management is really not just managing in terms of cutting things out. It's also determining what hour of the day, what day of the week, what week of the month. It's about how do you set yourself up for success in terms of how you use your time. I could not be a person who stayed up late at night. If you ask my wife, my brain doesn't really work after 9 o'clock. So to me, my best thought time is in the morning. When I'm a morning person, I'm fresh as a daisy. That's the time when I really, really need to concentrate on things that I need to give my attention to. Another thing is my environment. I don't do well in a mess. And so if I can't keep my mess cleaned up, which I need to do, I need to get out of my house and go to a place where I am not distracted by anything visual. I'm a very visual person. Some people don't know if they're visual, that they're a visual person, but they don't realize that their environment can really cause a major issue. The other thing is I have to set myself up for success in terms of my mindset, my attitude. Certain things I do not like to do. I have to just go to war with myself and say, I don't care if I don't feel like it. I don't like it. I don't want to. I have to set myself up for success and I have to start quoting scripture. I will do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I just have to battle it through. And the last thing is prioritization. I don't like to say no to people. And I don't like to say no to things that I love or, whatever. And sometimes I just need to remember, like what most of you said, and that is, if God has called me to do this, then I have to prioritize whatever those things are. I think that's it.
Thank you, Mark. One of the apps that I've been using lately, we've been using it at the office, is called Todoist. And it's the one with the little, I don't know if you can see it. Okay. And it's a way of keeping all of life together in one place. So, you can get the app. It's free. There's 2 levels in it. One is paid and one is not paid. But the unpaid version is just fine for making sure that you're getting all your stuff done on a particular day, and that you're consciously making a choice as to whether you want to move something to another day and move something else out of that day. If you're struggling with guilt, a very good book is called Boundaries. You can also watch online if you want. There are bits and pieces of boundaries, and boundaries are not so much about saying no. They're about learning how to say yes to what's important.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you have to say no to what's not important. And I'll give you an example. There was this pastor one day who got a phone call on a Sunday afternoon while he was at home. And this woman's on the phone. She's in crisis. My marriage is falling apart. I don't know what to do. On and on and on she went. And he asked her, how long had this been going on? She says, oh, it's been going on for years. And he realized that it became a boundary issue for him. If this has been going on for years, it was not going to collapse right at that moment. Mm-hmm. And that it could wait till Tuesday morning or, sometime next week. So that became a boundary. He did not need to rush over to her place and try and work this marriage out. So there's some things like that we need to understand that are not, they may seem urgent to the other person, or they may seem urgent, but they're not. They're just not urgent, and they will stay the way they are until, we get the time to address it. Your schoolwork, unfortunately, won't. You do have deadlines, and that's the reality of it. And if you don't finish a course and you start your next course, you've just done yourself a huge disfavor. Not only will it cost you more money, it's going to actually cost you more time, because it's very difficult to work full-time or to be involved in ministry full-time and to be doing other things and then say, I'm going to catch up. There is no catch-up time in our schedules. So if you don't finish a course, don't register for another course. Be smart about it, particularly if, you're a student that's on a scholarship or on a FAFSA grant or, those kinds of students where finances are an issue for you and you're being sponsored by somebody. Be very careful with your time use, because if you are a student who must take X number of courses and you don't, there's a problem with the finances. So it's just not a question of, it'll all come in together. The Lord has called me. It's also a question of being a good steward, and that means good boundaries.
That's so good and so right. And also, I just want to say, I know we just have a little bit more time here, and I do want to ask if there's any other questions, but I also want to say in all that we're talking about here and the boundaries and, sticking to it and carving out time and doing something daily, in that sometimes we just mess up and we don't. For whatever reason, life happens, or we go for a week without doing something or writing. And what I want to say is there's always the grace of God. Jump back in. Jump back. Don't stop. I have told so many people getting a doctorate is not so much about your brains or being smart. It's all about perseverance and not stop. So whatever you do, don't stop. Jump back in. There may be detours, like Mark talked about all of his. I had a few along the way. Noel talked about his. We've all got things that happen, but jump back in. Jump back in. That's what God will honor. There's grace for it. Please know if you do, something happens like that, or you get behind, talk to your professor. Always stay in communication with BG, your professor, the director, your advisor. Always in communication. Let us know so that we can help you, pray with you. Whatever your situation is, we want to be involved in that. And anybody else?
Thank you, Tracy.
Jump in with that. But also, are there any questions?
Just before there's questions, maybe Tracy, thank you very much for this encouragement. I want also to point out to the support that the UPLC is going to give to you, and it's UPLC acts as an accountability structure for you. And I really highly recommend that you set up an accountability system with your PLC, that you get back to them on a regular basis, allow them to ask you the question, how are you doing, and discuss it with them, because they are your support group that's closer to you, probably. They know you best, and they are the ones who are cheering you on. So keep in touch with them as much as you can.
Yes, great. And another thing with that too is, as someone said, I've heard a couple of times, my computer crashed. That happened to me. Your best friend will be an external hard drive or a thumb drive. Back any and everything. Okay, any questions?
Well, my own is not a question. I just want to appreciate Dr. Martins and other members of staff. They have been, a great encouragement to me, especially when I lost my mom early this year. They prayed for me, encouraged me, they supported me. And, when I started the second part of this program, they recommended books, they made it available for me. And I don't know how to say it. I'm just happy, and I want to express my appreciation for the encouragement that I receive in this course and program, in this journey. I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Abraham, my condolences on losing your mom. Mark, thank you so much for your candor and your transparency. Because boy, I tell you what, yeah, stuff just happens. And yes, I've had a computer crash and lose everything. It's like, oh my God. And then, just life. So it is very encouraging. And yes, Tracy, just staying in, getting back in, getting the momentum back. It's not easy, but it is possible. And so I appreciate all of you. This was very helpful.
Just adding my little bit. I really think that there should be follow-up sessions like these. I'm sure there are another 50 or so students who could benefit from what we've discussed today. Um, at this point, there are so many things that vie for attention. There's the need for for me to keep on budget for all the various activities that are connected to the dissertation process. There is attending illness, or there is the menopause, there are situations with family and stuff like that. So at points you tend to feel that you might be considered mean and very self-centered. And some people have actually become really mean and self-centered. I've seen a few of those, but I don't want to be in that camp. And yet at the same time, I have to be able to sort of walk a narrow road. So I have always, tried to reach out and touch and ask others to help, and that's been helpful for me. Connecting with others to share ideas and to have conversations. One of the things I realized too is that there are gaps in things that I ought to know or should know, even at this point in this final year. And so I've had to actually go to YouTube videos to be able to understand certain things. I would suggest the BGU that it does measurement and testings as a course separately that should be offered to doctoral students as well. If not the whole course, at least there should be, discussions based on that. And so I found that I've got to have a mentor to walk me through the process, because when I did the MA with BGU, and BGU did not offer that as an option. So I think that at some point or the other, even when I was doing other courses, I found there were gaps, and that I had to find mentors, I had to read extra, I had to do something to be able to fill the gap so that I could work on the projects that I needed to work on. I found a site called Academiology, and apparently a lot of students connected to that, doctoral students. And so there's a group that they have like deadlines about, I think they called it 100 days of writing or something like that. So I'm thinking of having a few people together with me, and I know I can connect with Noel and others, and we sort of, set a pace that we could work on and have that level of accountability as well. And I have been connecting with a prayer group. Dr. Martin is in that group herself, and it's been a real strength to me actually, because this guy Abraham, you were talking about attacks and stuff like that. I remember last year April, when I was sitting at the computer trying to connect with the, I had just started research methodology. There was such a fear. I was actually in the same physical location that I am now, and I just couldn't write. And I remember calling Nathalia to ask her if she would please pray with me, and she did. So there are all of these weird things that happen. So the thing is, I've been trying to set myself up like little goals and schedule those to particular time frames. And I've been trying to look at my own life rhythm, and I think it's important. I decided that I wasn't going to do like some other students a DTL in 2 or 3 years. I'm going to give myself a 4-year period, and so I'm in the final of the 4th year, and so I think that's something that we need to know. And I'm realizing how important it is to be able to have that budget organized. And I've been really connecting with a lot of my colleagues and pulling in favors from them. Like Hubert was involved in one of my sessions. He's in the chat. And there are other people somebody lent me equipment and different things. If I had to pay for that, it would have been close to about $1,000. So I really to thank God for that. So I'm thinking that this whole issue of collaboration and connection with others is critical. Yeah, those are my thoughts at this point in my journey.
Thank you. Thank you, Vita. Thank you. This is on time management. I want to manage our time, and we are closing out here, so I don't want to take up more of your time. And I do think that the gist of it, I think the bottom line is you've got to carve out time, and you've got to manage your time well in terms of what you can do and what you cannot do. And it's those boundaries and saying, okay, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do. And some great books were offered out. If you want to read another book, but Dr. Martine gave out how to be better to do that. So I think we've got some great tidbits, and I want to close us out in prayer and be very mindful of your time. So, Lord, for each one here, I thank you for BGU, Lord, and the great education that it is giving to students. And Lord, I ask that you would give each student empowered wills to say no to those things that they need to say no to, and say yes to those things they need to say yes to, Lord. Give them creative ideas for managing their time effectively, Lord. Resources, Lord, that they will find quickly the areas that have been written about what they're studying, Lord, so that they can do their work efficiently. Lord, we pray for all of our computers that they would stay,
yes, Lord,
and not crash. And we thank you, Lord, that you have us all in the palm of your hand, and that you've called us to do this for greater works, Lord, than we could ever do on our own, Lord. We love you, Jesus. It's all about you, and this is for your glory and for your work and what you've called us each to do for your kingdom. We love you, Lord. Amen. Thank you all so much.
bye-bye.
Give yourselves a hand. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.